I'm going to give you a scenario in order to make this point. Um, let's assume the business activity that we're used to, or anywhere close to the business activity that we're used to, does not start returning to normal until May, mid-May, late May, or June. Many businesses applying for the PPP loan have currently furloughed or laid off significant portions of their workforce because there's just no business. Um, and until business returns, then what they're hoping to do is bring them back. They're applying for the loans now, and we're expecting, they're applying for the loans now because of, one, don't know how long it's going to take to process. Two, don't know how long the money's going to be out there and it runs out. So everyone's doing it right now. But the big question they have is, will they have any control as to the date the funds are received and the beginning of the 8-week period for when those funds have to be spent? Because frankly, the concern is if they get the loan, let's say mid-April, the 8-week period ends around mid-June, chances are businesses are just, hopefully, knock on wood, they'll, if we can start returning back to some sort of normalcy in June, the loan basically time is gonna run out, and then that's when the workforce needs to be rehired. The workforce needs to be rehired in mid-June, not between, frankly, April 15th and June 15th. So that way, that would cause very little of the loan to be forgiven. Anyone want to jump on that one?
Do you want me to take that one? This is John.
Sure, John.
I mean, really, it doesn't. If you pay people and they're still sitting home and they're on your payroll, that's okay. We've brought that up, and so in fact, some cases, in a lot of cases, your employees may make more money on unemployment, but we're asking people to bring back people on the payroll, even if you don't have the work for them, and that's why we're paying. That's why we're doing this program, in order to keep people off of unemployment, keep them on the payroll, keep the rate down. So I understand the questions on the timing, but we're saying bring people back as soon as you get approval on this, and that way it'll help the forgiveness side. And if I could just circle back to the forgiveness side as well. The reason why this is a 2-year program is we expect, and if it's done right, it'll just evaporate in July. It'll all be paid back, and these loans will be off the books within a couple of months. We don't expect anyone to go out to 2 years. And Chuck, you bring up a good point about saving some of your cash as if it's good. You want to talk about that?
Basically, we'd encourage clients to go into this with their eyes open. This is a loan, and there is some forgiveness portion to it, but it's a loan. And so there are a lot of gray areas. There's a lot of things that we don't know, and we're not going to know until the forgiveness periods we're applying for it. So going into this with your eyes wide open is probably the best path, knowing you may have a loan at the end of this period.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point, Chuck, because we're coming to this conclusion as well, that if our clients are relying on the forgiveness of the loan, it may not make sense, because I understand what you're saying, John, and if this loan is being done to keep employees at home, or if it's being made now and available now, so they're getting payment while they're at home, and to keep them employed, even though there's not much revenue coming in, I get that for the employees. And our nature here is also consulting for our business owners, which usually means what's best for them is best for the employees. One of the things that happens, and I think everyone on this call knows this, is a business needs capital to ramp up. So when we come out of this, these companies have been hurt. Their balance sheets have been pummeled because everyone has stopped paying everyone. Everyone's trying to hoard cash. And when the economy starts coming back again, the businesses are going to need capital to ramp back up. Our business, CPA's business, has a 90-day cash cycle at minimum, and a lot of businesses have, anywhere between 60 and 90 days. So it's not just that the companies are going to flip on a switch and on June 15th everything's going to go from 0 to 60 and no problem. There has to be more capital invested. I understand what you're saying, and I think that's really what we're saying to our clients is you have to go into this thinking you may not get the loan forgiven, and you really have to understand that. But that is going to be another problem when we start coming out of this, because the economy is going to need money, and that engine is going to need to be fed to get back up and running again. I don't know if anybody wanted to comment on that.
Hey, sorry.
Yeah, this is Scott. I'll just add in there that, another element that we're all looking at is the Federal Reserve and their Main Street lending program that they announced but haven't provided details. And I think that that's something that all of these points that you're bringing up, Mark, are great, because this is what Congress is going to be looking at in the administration and saying, well, how do we need to tweak this program? Because there's talk of COVID. We passed 3 packages in relation to this disaster right now, and so now they're talking about a 4th one, a 5th one, and a 6th one when Congress comes back. And so that's what I think you may start seeing some of these adjustments to highlight or address some of the concerns that you were just bringing up. But I think that liquidity is going to be the focus from the Hill moving forward here.
Yeah, Scott, because I can tell you without a doubt, there are going to be many, many clients that are going to go under if not a lot of these loans are going to be forgiven. And one of the problems is, depending on their industry, they've seen their revenues go down to 20% of normal, down to 0. And so that's just a fact. So I understand that, so that's one of the challenges. So the next few questions are a little bit about kind of have to do with the calculation of the average payroll cost, and we may not have all of the questions, all the answers for these, but let's see what we can do. Alex, this next one's for you. The rule seems to leave a lot of questions. For example, what is exactly part of payroll and utility costs, especially whether to reduce gross payroll by withholding and FICA. Does the interim rule provide any further clarity in your mind for these provisions?
I don't think it gave too much further guidance. I think one of the important things, as John and Scott may have alluded to, is the first part of this program is to get the money out the door, get it into the hands of these businesses so they can pay employees, keep them off unemployment. So in that, I think that they're pretty, and John, again, and I don't want to speak too much because I know you're probably close to this in the SBA, but they're pretty kind of lenient, and as he mentioned, that their ability to kind of be pretty forgiving. So I think the fact that they were erring on the side of being more broad than being prescriptive, where prescriptive might be more debilitating than actually being broad. So I think as we go through and we hear the comments and people get that, again, this is something that they might kind of look at through iterations of comments and change those. But at this point, I think it's kind of on the air of let's go broad. Let's just make sure that these people can make sure that they're paid and can come out on the other side of this and able to kind of minimize the impact of businesses going out of into bankruptcy.